Hi, as a business owner, are you aware of the new trading rules in place now that the UK has left the EU? And do you have questions about those rules that can affect your business? There's still time to access our free EU transition support surgeries. Our specialists can assist you in areas such as HR, VAT, services, GDPR and international trading. This free service ends on the 31st of March, so why not book in and get yourself and your business on track and ready. It's as easy as check, change, go.
For joining us on this West Midlands Growth Hub event. My name is Simon Jack. I am the BBC's business editor, and despite this building being pretty much empty, it was impossible to find a meeting room. So you see, this is the best we can offer at Broadcasting House. I also used to present the Today programme's business news, and without doubt, the highlight of my broadcasting career was when Jim Naughtie introduced Jeremy Hunt, Culture Secretary, although it didn't come out quite right. I think he found a hitherto silent C in the secretary's surname, and he then went on to be health secretary, where all the doctors called him that for a while. It really caught on, and of course, but we are in a different world. It's been an eventful few years for a business reporter such as myself. We've talked of little else than Brexit over the last few years. I certainly thought I'd never cover bigger stories than the financial crisis or indeed Brexit. And then, of course, a pandemic comes along and proves us all wrong in the most horrible way. Nevertheless, we are now in a new world, a world which has changed for many reasons, COVID being one of them. And of course, we find ourselves outside the European Union now. There have been some challenges that we've been reporting on over the last few weeks for exporters, which you will have seen on the news. The jury is still out on whether those are teething problems or permanent features of our trading relationship. But what we also want to do today is to look at some of the opportunities, some of the strategies that successful companies are using to navigate the new world in which we find ourselves. There's going to be a series of presentations. We've got Kevin Gaskell, former chief exec at Porsche, BMW, Lamborghini, ran some really incredible brands. We've got Daniel Zor, who turned his back on finance and found solace in whiskey and managed to combine his love of whiskey with a business. Obviously, that's an industry that's been at the centre of some export stories recently. Stuart Green from Hydrogarden Limited, local SME case study. We've got Craig Humphrey, who's the managing director of the Growth Hub, the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP, and we'll be hearing from him. And also we've got Jenny Campbell, who is going to former Dragon, of course, to give us some of her tips and what she's learned along the way, both from her own business and from others. And finally, James Ahern, who is from the Department for International Trade, who's going to help us with some of the resources that we could expect you can rely on in your drive to export more. So without further ado, introduce our first speaker, who I like to say I knew before he was famous. Our paths crossed many times when he was the boss of John Lewis. It is, of course, the Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street. And he said to me that I knew you before you were famous too. So I think that's pretty fair. Without further ado, Andy Street to kick us off. Andy, over to you.
Simon, thank you very much, and that is very fair. I don't know who's become more famous. I think probably you have, Simon, given you are the permanent fixture on the BBC TV screens now, and your secrets of your earlier life are safe with me when you were a newbie reporter. Anyway, my pleasure to kick this event off, but I'll be relatively brief because we've got lots of brilliant speakers later on as well. Just a bit of an overview for the region. And of course, the first thing I did just want to say is thank you to everybody who's coming to make their presentations today. I think it will be very illuminating, so look forward to that. Now, in terms of why this matters to the region, I suspect most people here will know this, but particularly for Simon and indeed others from out the region who we're very pleased to have us join us today, the whole question of trade is more important to the West Midlands than any other region of the country. One simple statistic that proves that: 24% of our regional GDP comes from the trade of goods. That is higher than anywhere else other than Wales, which is actually the same as us, 24%. And just to put it in real perspective, it is 3 times the number from London, where 8% of their GDP comes from the trade of goods. Now, obviously, to complete the picture, London does other things. It trades those intangible services, but actually selling goods around the world, that is a real West Midlands speciality. And we have, of course, got huge trade surpluses with the USA. We have, until this last few months, actually, enjoyed a trade surplus with China, which is unique in the UK, but that's just being pushed back on 1 or 2 of the little difficulties in our manufacturing sector over the pandemic year. So, very simply, wealth here depends on continuing trading success. So the stakes were very high for us in the trade deal. It's why I always argued, you may know, I was not a Brexiteer myself, but we have to respect the outcome of the referendum. But I always argued that we have to have a deal that enabled our businesses to continue with their just-in-time supply chain and be tariff-free. That has been delivered by the trade deal in theory, and the general reaction from the manufacturing sector, which of course is the one that I'm referring mostly to here because it's the one that is very, very dominant in our economy. The general reaction is that it is a deal that we can live with, even if we might not have wished the change in the first place. So a cautious welcome to the deal would be my overview of it. In terms of how businesses have prepared for it, it is definitely true, and the growth hubs have done lots of research on this, that the state of readiness was not good. The fact we'd had one false start on it, where lots of preparations were done, lots of stockpiling were done 12 months before, actually, I think, in a sense, dented organisations' desire to prepare again. And we know from our data that about 20% of our organisations across the West Midlands said very willingly that they had not prepared almost at all. And another 50% of organisations said that they had prepared somewhat, but were unsure exactly what it would mean for them. So a huge degree of uncertainty as we actually moved into the new year. In terms of what we've actually seen happen, I won't go on about it because you've seen it reported widely on the BBC and elsewhere. There have been these huge teething problems, and we've heard in a lot of our meetings about particularly the cost of freight, the delays to freight. We've heard actually of manufacturers in the West Midlands having to remake products that are actually stuck in the chain of exporters, and that actually is a cost to them. And we've got some of our leading manufacturers in the supply chain of the automotive sector talking about that as live examples at the moment, and we're busy feeding those through as case studies to the Cabinet Office. So the obvious question is, what are we going to do to respond? And there's perhaps 3 things I'd like to put on the table that might stimulate the conversation. The first is obviously the whole question of where are we going to need to invest as a region to make sure that we can continue to be successful. And the best example of this is, of course, the automotive sector. Again, a huge employer here, 45,000 direct jobs, many more in terms of the supply chain. And the critical ingredient of the deal was the rules of origin. Now, really good news that the rules of origin were generally favourable to us in the short term, when we had been told by Lord Frost just about 3 months before that it wouldn't be possible to negotiate any elements of rules of origin. So it was a huge relief that they were there. But obviously there is a catch, because the rules of origin become tougher in about 5 years' time. So very clearly, we need to invest in advance of those rules of origin biting. And the best single example of that is, of course, the gigafactory for the supply of electric batteries, which, of course, we are bidding for that to be in Coventry. And we've announced our site on behalf of all of the West Midlands. Absolutely critical that we get that away, because if we're not manufacturing those batteries by 2026, when the rules of origin change, we will frankly not have an electric vehicle industry. The second issue is, of course, the one of training in the sectors where we are no longer bringing in the same number of people from abroad. Now, the obvious example of that, and it's where a big growth will come in our economy, is, of course, the health sector, where literally our universities have swung provision, our combined authority has swung provision through our education budget. So there is definitely an opportunity in the growth of employment in those sectors. And then the third area that we must be looking at, where we are frankly a bit sketchy on details so far, and it sounds a technical point, but it's very important. And that's this whole question of what is the successor to the EU fundings like the ESIF and the European Regional Development Funding, which will come into what the government called the Shared Prosperity Fund. And this was worth about about £500 million to the West Midlands over a 5-year period. So a big public sector investment on training, development, and we're waiting to see the terms of those new schemes. The Combined Authority will be the lead organisation for that, so we will be having to put in our bids for the initial funding that has to be done by this June, and then for next financial year, more substantial funds. So there is definitely a real current active piece around that. So lastly, I just want to pay tribute to the Growth Hubs. They've done a brilliant job in advising, giving advice out, and what the West Midlands Growth Hubs have come together to provide, and I know Craig will talk about this a little later on, is a united service, a one-stop shop, wherever you turn up, whichever door you open first, referred to the Growth Hubs for their EU exit advice material. So it's all there, and all the details I'm sure will be shared, but I'm very pleased that locally we've managed to work in that united way to provide that business advice. So hopefully, Simon, there's a few things there that colleagues might want to pick up on later to get us started.
Very helpful, Andy. Thank you so much for that. Listen, we're not going to have a chance to get Q&A from everyone who's on the call to get to you. I know you've got to move along, but there will be questions later. But whilst I've just got you here, it's going to be very interesting. We've got a very different type of Conservative government, and you've talked about the incentives to invest. What is the appropriate role for government when it comes to business? Because in the old days, it was create the conditions, then get out of the way. You had this feels like a very different mode we're in now, and I want to think, where can the government most effectively help?
Yeah, brilliant. So the government don't like the language local industrial strategy, and possibly because it came from a different government. But actually, I think that is the answer to the question. So every region of the country has its specialisations. We've talked about ours. They're different in Teesside, for example, and we've seen all the investment there around alternative forms of energy. But the government can make what I would call foundational investments to grow some of those sectors. So it's not in the old language choosing the winning sectors. We're choosing them by what we are already brilliant at and have an international competitive advantage. But there are some things they have to do to help us grow. So let's be really clear again, make it specific. If we think about this Gigafactory story, there is no country in the world, apart from Elon Musk in California, who's actually invested in this capability without a substantial government investment. We will need that, but then the private sector will put cash in many times over, and indeed the cluster that we will growing will leverage that many times. But we do need foundational investments, and of course, we also need investment in skills and capability. So another really good example, 2 institutes of technology set up with government funding in this region, both concentrating on advanced engineering skills. So it's about a number of public interventions that are growing the specializations of the region.
Got it. So region-specific assistance and investment. Andy, thank you so much indeed. I'd like to thank you on behalf of everyone on the call. Really good food for thought, and we will move along to that now. Andy Street, thanks very much indeed. Just to reiterate what I was saying there to Andy, to everyone on the call, there is a chat function during this event. So if you have questions for the presenters we have coming up, I'm going to put those to the presenters at the end of the session. So as things go along, make a note of your questions, fire them on the chat function, and we will pick as many of those out as we can and put them to our speakers at the end. So with that, I'd like to move along now to introduce Kevin Gaskell, who is an enormously impressive CV, worked with Porsche, BMW, Lamborghini, 25 years of experience, and he's going to tell us a little bit about why tough, challenging times can be good times to build great brands and great businesses. So with that, I'm just going to sort of remind Keith to take off to share his slides with us, and I will hand over to you, Kevin. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Are my slides being seen?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. Now I'm going to speak about using the adversity of the current situation as energy to lead our businesses to success. I believe that people are incredible. I believe that people have got their own passions, their own dreams, their own desires, and outside work, people use those in all kinds of ways. And our job as a leader, our job as business leaders, is to make sure that our companies perform at the peak level. And what that means is making sure that our teams bring their energy and their passion into work with them. Our job is to make sure that we create an incredible culture. In our businesses, I don't speak to people about, can you find another 1% return on sales or another 2% return on net assets, because 99% of my teams don't know what that means. What we do is say, let's build something extraordinary. Let's build something incredible. Let's build something that we can look back on and say, hey, look what we created. And it's that passion, it's that energy that's allowed me to work with some fantastic teams to create extraordinary companies. And those extraordinary companies have been built by ordinary people. It's about engaging their dream. Now, of course, dreams are dreams. And the trouble is that the real world has a habit of getting in the way. And if we look back at the past couple of years, it's been an extraordinary journey. Brexit and then COVID. We could have predicted the challenges of Brexit, but nobody expected COVID. The truth is that a number of companies have found COVID incredibly difficult. Two of my businesses, we found it very, very challenging. We've had to go through enormous change, major restructure, change in the way we've approached the market. But other companies have actually found opportunity and benefit through COVID. Other companies are finding that Brexit can work for them. Well, how do you do that? What is it that's different? I believe that great businesses can be built in the most difficult of times. West Midlands, home of the British motor industry. Well, I was asked to run Porsche when I was 36 years old. To give you an idea of how difficult the market was, we had lost 90% of our sales. We had 3 years unsold inventory sitting in fields and warehouses. We were hiding cars everywhere. In terms of customer satisfaction, out of 32 brands in the marketplace, we were number 32. Where'd you go from there? Well, you can't go down because you're already at the bottom. The change that we had to go through was extraordinary. And when I asked the team, where should we be? What do you believe we could be? We're facing a market where we're in the deepest of a massive recession. We just put our prices up by 25%, which have been caused by changes in the currency. Our customers didn't want to talk to us. So what do? And somebody said, you know, we should be in the top 10 brands. We're Porsche. Somebody else said, well, we should be in the top 5. And one of my guys said, Kev, we should be number 1. There's no reason that we shouldn't be number 1. We are Porsche. We took that business to pieces. We used the passion of the team, the energy of realizing that if we didn't do something, this brand was finished. This brand was gone. This fantastic brand with wonderful heritage would just fade away. We took that business to pieces. We looked outside at opportunities to learn. Who could we learn from? We went and looked at airlines. We looked at logistics companies. We looked at marketing companies. We went to 5-star hotels. We realized that people weren't buying a car. People were buying an experience. We transformed the experience of the company. It was done with the people inside the business. 4 years later, we were number 1 in customer service. Instead of having 3 years unsold inventory, we had a 1-year forward order bank. Instead of losing 20% on sales, we were making 20% on sales. We were the most profitable business in the motor industry. And we did it by daring to dream, by imagining where we could take this great business. So my belief is, I completely understand how difficult life is out there at the minute. Currently, I invest in and I chair 5 companies, and we're fighting hard. But you know what? It's not about how successful you are. It is about how successful you want to be. And then it's about using a structured approach to achieve it. I believe there are 3 stages. The first stage is commit. What is it that we actually want to create? Yes, the world is very difficult. Yes, there's unknown, uncertainty. But what is it that we are setting out to create? And let's be absolutely committed to that. The second piece is connect. You can't do this on your own. The whole team, the whole company, your partners, your suppliers, your clients need to understand where you're going. What is it that you're setting out to achieve? And the third piece is making magic, creating an extraordinary culture. Where those overlap, that's inspiration. And in our businesses, we work so hard to make sure our teams are inspired, that they come into work in the morning, bringing their passion, bringing their energy, wanting to create something that's extraordinary. It starts with the commit, making an absolutely positive decision that you're going to build something that is incredible, daring to dream about what that could be. Don't look at tomorrow like today plus a few percent. Tomorrow is different. The world has changed. Let's dare to dream about what we could build. When I get asked to go in and work with some management teams, I'll say to them, what's your plan? And they immediately say to me, well, we've got a budget and it's 3% growth. I'll say, great, 3%. Well, that's kind of okay, but let me give you a different way of approaching it. What would you do if I asked you to grow this business by 30% next year? I say, well, you're crazy. I say, look, no. Some of my businesses today, I have one company that's grown 800% in the last 3 years. It's not a startup. It's a mature, established business. But what we did was start to think differently about the business and how we could take it to the clients. So 30%, okay, forget 30%. You can see they relax. How about 300%? How would you grow this business by 300% next year? And they say, you're crazy. I say, no, let's change our thinking. Let's imagine if I gave you all of the resources, if I took away all of the limitations, what would you do differently to grow your business by 300%? Come on, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. And you see people start, the brain, and we start laughing and joking. Well, we fly to the moon. Okay, let's fly to the moon. But let's capture these ideas. Well, we need to go into this market. We need to change our product to do this. We need to improve our logistics to do that. I took over a boat company about 5 years ago. We were selling $5 million boats. The average delivery time for a new spare part was 8 months. And when I said to the team, we should be doing that in 24 hours, they said, you're crazy. I said, let's think differently. 5 months later, we were doing 90% of the delivery in 24 hours. So I said to the team, what could you do differently? And we list these imaginations, these what could we change? And then we prioritize them and look at them and say, which of those are not actually under our control? And you'll find that most of them really are under your control. So change your thinking. Imagine success. What does success look like? Make that vision of success exciting. Is it a business award or is it being the best in the world? Let's make it exciting. Let's make sure the whole team understand where we're going, what we're setting out to achieve. How can we get excited and passionate about this? Taking Porsche from number 32 to number 1 was an extraordinary achievement, but it was done with the passion to change the entire company. Let's understand how we do that, and then let's start to make the change. And you know, making the change in a business often frightens people, but it's like eating a frog. If you're going to eat a frog, don't look at it for too long. It does not get any more appetizing. So let's get on with it. Let's move fast. Let's learn fast. Let's make mistakes fast. Come back from them. Because what we're looking for is not market share. I'm not looking for market share. Everybody else is looking for that market share. What I'm looking for is opportunity share. Where can I go that's different? Where can I take my product, my service that's different, that the other people are not looking at? Let's dare to dream about what that could be. But then we need to build the plan to make it happen. I always say start at the end and work backwards. So we start at the end, that vision of success, and work backwards to here. Because if I start there and work backwards to here, well, that's a straight line. If I start here and try to go there, what happens? Well, COVID happens, so I go left. Brexit happens, I go right. I react to the market. No, don't react to the market. Understand what your vision of success is. Start there and work back to here. Be clear. Make sure the whole team understand that. In our business, we make our planning very, very simple. Because once we've decided what it is we're going to change, we prioritize that. We draw a line halfway, we throw the bottom half away because we'll never get to it. We take the top half, we reprioritize. We go halfway down, we just take that top 25%. That is what we're going to deliver. That is what is going to make the biggest difference in our business. So let's deliver that. We make it very visible. Here's a plan from one of our businesses. It's as simple as this. I like to handwrite them because people engage with it more easily than a computer program or something from outside the business that's beautifully presented. No, let's make it as a working tool. We make it very open. We share it with everybody. The boat company I just referred to, some of the biggest changes we made in that business came from our suppliers coming in and getting engaged. Exactly this process. They knew how we could improve because they were seeing us. Our customers knew how we could improve. That was a business that had gone through 10 years of losses. It was owned by the banks. The banks don't like owning businesses. They're really not very good at running retail or manufacturing businesses. 10 years of losses, and we turned that business into profit in 14 months with the same team of people. But we had a clear plan. We did the 25%. We let everybody see where they made a difference. Oh, I understand. If I do that, it does this, that achieves that. I get it. That's why I can contribute. We talk about how our vision of success will be perceived. Are we going to be world class? Well, if not, why not? Somebody has to be world class. And world class means, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? Do I look, if I came into your business tomorrow, would it look world class? If I listen to your team, if I listen to your sales team, if I listen to your product knowledge team, do they know their stuff? Do they show respect to each other? Do they show respect to me as a client? How do you make me feel? Price is not a number. Price is an experience. And the truth is, when you're changing your business, it's not about spending money. That's not the key differentiator. You will never outspend your competition. You spend some, they spend some. Somebody else spends more. It's an arms race of increased spending. No, don't do that. Don't outspend your competition, outthink them. This is a tool we use in our business. Very simple, ideas wall. I don't pay people for their ideas. When I employ you, I employ all of you. That includes the top 10%. And I invite you to come and be inspired in helping us to create something extraordinary. So put your ideas on this wall. And this is a simple picture of one of the tools in our business where the ideas go on the wall and we move those ideas across the wall and we create project groups. How we're going to change the business.
Kevin, it's Simon here. Could you just, we're not getting some of your slides. I don't know if you're going to reel through them, but you seem to be indicating a slide which we can't see. Is there something you can do with that? It's working fine without, but I just want to say if there's a button you can press to bring them in, that would be that much better. But honestly, the content is, we're getting the points. I just wondered if you had slides to go with them.
Yeah, I do have slides. That's why I said at the beginning, can you see them?
So we saw the opening one, but they're not turning through. Don't worry. We'll try and work on that. But listen, we're getting the content. We're totally understanding the messages you're delivering. So do carry on.
Okay, that's a bit concerning. So we collate people's ideas on our ideas wall. The difference in our businesses versus many businesses is we hold our board meeting standing in front of the ideas wall where people have presented their ideas. We invite people from the business to come and join us, to come and be part of the board. So we want to inspire somebody. Don't give them a £20 good idea reward, but invite them to be part of the board. So for 15 minutes, they are part of the board explaining how their idea for improving this function is going to change the company. And they'll go home at night and tell their husband, their wife, their friends, their family, you know what happened to me today? I was in the board today. The whole board were listening to my idea. That is how we transformed the boat company. We invited 2,000 boat builders to tell the board how to run the business more effectively. They knew how to build boats. I didn't. But what we were able to do was focus their dream, focus their imagination, focus their knowledge, and change that business. But you've got to change it quickly. And, you know, I hear about 3-year plans and 5-year plans. Well, they might as well be forever. We don't talk about 3-year or 5-year plans. What we talk about are 1,000-day plans. We have a 1,000-day plan. We raise the heart rate by talking about 1,000 days. We're going to do this in 1,000 days. And then every project is broken down to 50 days. It's a series of 50 days, but it's 50 days. We celebrate at the end of the 50 days the progress we've made. We have a counter in the office that says, today is day 775, tomorrow's 774, 773. What that does is it gets the heart rate up, it gets the energy level up. It makes sure people understand that every day counts, that speed is important. One of the biggest challenges in business is not a lack of agility, it's a surplus of inertia. You have to get that flywheel spinning and moving forwards. We have visible goals. We make it very obvious what it is we're setting out to achieve. But we get the teams to use their passion and their knowledge to create something that's extraordinary. The third piece is create, and that's create the magic of shared achievement. And I'll just give you an example of how we encapsulate these three principles of commit, connect, and create together. About 3 years ago, I had a dream, and my dream was that I wanted to row across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I know this isn't a business example, but it's a microcosm of putting all of this together. My dream was to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And I asked, would anybody like to come with me? And you get the usual reaction, no, you're crazy. Eventually, I found a team of 4 guys who were willing to come with me. When we talked about what we wanted to achieve, we set our goal as breaking the world record for rowing the fastest across the Atlantic. And people said to us, you're crazy. Commit, absolutely commit to row across that ocean. Connect. The plan that we built together was extraordinarily challenging. We learned how to navigate, how to row, first aid, electronics, engineering, maritime law, all of that. In 2 years, we went through the whole training cycle. We prepared ourselves for what could be 60 days at sea in an open rowing boat. We left Spain in December 2019. We were so prepared. We were absolutely, completely organized. On the first night, we were struck by an Atlantic storm. Now, I'd never seen an Atlantic storm from the outside, and I'd certainly never seen one from the inside in a 25-foot plastic rowing boat. We were hammered, absolutely hammered. 2 of our carbon fiber oars, which could take tens of tons of load, were smashed in the first minute, snapped, gone, finished. We locked ourselves in the tiny cabins at the end of the boat. We locked ourselves in, and we rode out the storm. In the morning, we came out, and we asked ourselves, we could limp back to shore. We were only 80 miles from shore. Or what do we do? What we did was replan, reorganize. We used the culture of passion and inspiration that we delivered in that team that we created together to apply our skills. I was the engineer. One of the guys was the navigator. We had a medic, and we had the fit guy who was in the British triathlon squad. We put those skills together, and we kept going. We changed the way we approached it. 35 days later, we arrived in Antigua, having set a new world record. The difference wasn't that we were better rowers or we were better anything. The difference was the culture and the inspiration of the team as a whole. And if you can create that in your business, if you can create leaders at every level by allowing people to see what it is that you're setting out to achieve, what is your vision of success, and inviting people to make that difference, you'll find that even when it goes wrong, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it will go wrong, doesn't matter. Back off, reset, go again. We never lose. We either win or we learn. And learning is a critical example. Make sure the team understand they're part of the team. In our businesses, we catch people in, we don't catch people out. What I mean by that is when somebody does something that's remarkable, we make a lot of noise about it. We cheer, we celebrate. If something goes wrong, we talk about it quietly. We understand. We take it to pieces, we examine, we learn from it. It's about catching people in, not catching people out. By doing that, we built some great teams. Through those great teams, we built some extraordinary companies. I know how difficult it is outside right now. I fully understand. I'm running businesses through it. The businesses that win in the long term, though, will be those who have a clear vision of where they're going, who are fully committed to it, who connect their team to it, and who together create an extraordinary culture that takes them on to better times. Use the adversity as energy. Thank you.
Kevin, a brilliant place to finish. Where you came in using adversity as energy. Really like the commit, connect, and create process. And also just that question about how are you going to forget 3%? How would you grow your business 300% in the next year? As a spur to ask questions about how you would do things very differently. Sorry about the slides. Listen, we will be distributing Kevin's slides through to all the participants, but I don't think a very, very vivid account, particularly. I mean, you got there in the end. You're in one piece, so clearly that trip went well. It's not one I would have attempted. Listen, if you've got questions for Kevin, please submit them on the chat function, and we will get to them in due course at the end of the session. We're going to move on now to talk to a smaller business. This is Daniel Zor, founder and chief executive of the Cotswold Distillery Company, once in finance, now in whiskey. Sounds like a great journey. So I'm going to hand over to you, Daniel. Over to you. Can you unmute yourself, Daniel? We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Got it. Good. We're good to go.
About that. No, thank you very much for having me. Usually by the time I say a few words, people are saying, what the heck is an American doing making whiskey in the Cotswolds? And it is a bit of a long story, but just to make it short, 30 years in a kind of a loveless career in finance. I started work. I grew up in New York, and I started working with a New York-based currency manager that grew and grew and grew, and allowed me to do things that were more fun than the job itself, like go off and live in Paris and be the European marketing guy based there. I ultimately ended up in London. But while I was in Paris, I guess my first few years were like a lot of Americans in Paris who were sort of foodies and every weekend off exploring the vineyards or going to the agricultural shows. But I discovered whiskey in 2000, and I fell in love with single malt. It was the way in which press terroir and provenance and a sense of place. And then I started going off on an annual sort of guys trip with my best friend who lived in New York to Scotland and touring around distilleries, which I just found fascinating. The way in which the product was made. I think if you spend 30 years working in financial derivatives, you have manufacturing envy. You love people who are actually making things, engineers and chemists, and obviously the scenery and the heritage and the tradition. Cut to 2010 when, because my wife, we were living in London and she fell ill. And it was one of those moments where you start to think about what really matters. And for me, what really mattered was having some time to spend together. So we ended up buying a little farmhouse in the North Cotswolds, just to sort of have a place to be at the weekends. We're both city people, never thought we'd fall in love with country life. And we literally are in the middle of nowhere. And then one morning in 2012, and this was post-financial crisis, when foreign exchange as an asset class was just not happening and things were kind of going from bad to worse at my firm, I looked out the window and there was a field of spring barley growing outside. And I thought to myself, they make an awful lot of barley here, but no one's ever made any whiskey. And I thought with 30 million visitors a year coming to the Cotswolds, we could end up sort of creating a beautiful destination distillery, just like you see up in Scotland, only people don't have to drive 8 hours, 10 hours to get there. Being from New York, I understood the attraction of places like Vermont, which are where you go if you live in New York and you need to get away and for the weekend or see the foliage in the fall, and all those great artisanal industries in Vermont probably wouldn't be able to exist if it weren't for sort of Boston and New York being a day's drive away. I think of the Cotswolds as the Vermont of the UK. You've got Birmingham on one side and London on the other. The biggest cities So this was my idea, but that's about as far as I really could go, because I'd never made anything in my life, never mind whiskey. I was able to get a couple of Scots with 100 years of experience between them, who took me through the process, and we found a beautiful site. So you can see the outside of our distillery, a couple of Cotswold stone buildings, a couple miles from home. Then this kind of goes through. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. You can see the distillery. Well, you can see it behind me. And then on the bottom right of your screen, those are our whiskey pots, Mary and Janice. We make whiskey true to the original idea that I'd had, using local barley. So you can see our barley farmers, Michael and Philip Green, who grow barley about 15 minutes from us on the Blenheim estate, actually close to Woodstock. And on the upper right, where we get our lavender for our Cotswolds Dry Gin, which is in Snows Hill in Worcestershire, just above Broadway. In the middle, you can see our beautiful new visitor center, which was created about a year ago. And that was because the original idea I had, which is, if you build it, will they come? They have come. They come to the tune of about 100,000 a year. So we get about 40,000 in the visitor center and our cafe, and we've got sort of a couple tours a day, 7 days a week. And that's probably my favorite part of the business, because it's the direct to consumer. It's the part that I understood as a consumer, sort of getting that romance and seeing the place. And then we have another 2 retail outlets, one in Bourton on the Water and one in Broadway, which get another 50 or 60,000. So unfortunately, that has taken a bit of a hit in the past year, because we've had to be closed most of the time. We did have a great staycation summer in August and September, but other than that, it's been a bit rough. But e-commerce has made up for that, and we've had a great year online, and that's really helped quite a bit. We originally were focused on single malt, but of course, whiskey has to wait for a minimum of 3 years before you can release it. So in the meantime, we created a gin after having tried 150 different botanicals. And the gin sort of went viral, and I had no idea that gin was going to take off in the way that it did, or that we would make such a sort of a good gin, and the market really would be there. And before we knew it, we found ourselves, being listed by the likes of Fortnum and Mason and Harrods and Selfridges and Harvey Nichols, and then national listings started to come, and now we're in sort of Sainsbury's and Waitrose and Majestic nationwide. And then the whiskey finally, it hit its 3 years, and we released our whiskey in 2017, and that's done extremely well. We're now in, I think, our 4th year of whiskey, and we probably have all told, I guess, about 30 different products between various whiskeys, gins, and other spirits and liqueurs, all made in our North Cotswolds site. A few awards that we've won over the years. We actually just yesterday heard that we were voted English Whiskey Producer of the Year in the Wizard of Whiskey Awards, which sounds actually funny, because you might say, how many English whiskey producers actually are there out there? And when I started this, I never imagined that there would be a lot of folks sort of crazy enough to go off and try and make whiskey in England. I think I was the 3rd. And now there's, believe it or not, nearly 25 distilleries making whiskey in England. So not the kind of growth you've seen in craft distilling when it comes to gin, because the barriers to entry are much less in gin than they are in whiskey. You actually have to have quite a bit more capital to be able to lay down stock for years and withstand that sort of period. But then after that, it's really about growing. And just a picture here of some of our people at the distillery. These are all locals. These are all folks from Warwickshire, Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, who never probably thought that they would end up being in the whiskey business. The one thing that they all share with me is they've never done this before. The learning curve has been steep, but actually our head distiller, Nick, on the upper left in the middle there, has just been certified master distiller. He's the first person to gain that certification with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling. So, little did we know that in the West Midlands we've got a really growing whiskey culture in the south bit of it, in the Warwickshire bit of the Cotswolds. Just a few points about Brexit. So let me, I guess, preface this with what do exports mean for us? Well, clearly, as a destination distillery, retail is important to us, direct retail. Our distillery, our tours, our visitors, our 3 shops are a wonderful part of our business. They probably represent between 20 and 25% of our revenue. But now exports are already more than 20%, and our strategic our goal is to grow them to 50% in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. I think it's really important so that we're not overly reliant on the UK economy, although the UK economy, obviously, even in the most severe test we've had this past year, at least actually for our part of the business, if you're a server of alcohol, obviously it's been a really tough year. If you're a maker of alcohol, it's been less tough, although we've had to pivot to the channels which work, i.e. Online and off trade, so grocery. But we are selling into about just under 40 countries around the world. And this growth was sort of organic over the years. Some of it, well, actually most of it, were really distributors coming to us, having heard about what we're doing and wanting to represent us. And after a bit of diligence, we would, enter into a relationship. And I've done quite a bit of traveling around the world to go out and speak to stores and consumers and whiskey fairs, etc. Our core 5 markets are 2 of them are in Europe, so that would be France and Germany, and then the US, Japan, and I would say China and Australia are 2 areas that are very important to us. We've also just started in Russia. But just a couple of bullet points you can see here. These are from our export sort of manager, which is that we did see a fall in exports in the first quarter, but nothing concerning in that basically you always see the first quarter quite a bit off in the drinks business compared to Q4, which is probably 40% of the year. But particularly in this year, there was just a lot of stocking up in the fourth quarter. Exports have started again, and they're getting through, but my export guys tell me that mainly, sort of the western part of the EU is where things are moving along successfully. But when it comes to trying to send smaller amounts out to the east, to Hungary, I know was a particularly a difficult one for us, etc. That there's been difficulties. What we sell is bottles, so typically small amounts, maybe a pallet or 2 at a time, and those don't fill a whole container, so you have to sort of wait for groupage, and that's been a little bit difficult. We've also heard the typical thing about sort of paperwork being a little bit more of an issue, and also just that lorry drivers seem to not be in the right place, and containers. So that again is something that we think will improve over the coming months. So, long story short, we don't really see, the issues, and so far affecting us. This is just an example of a promotion which I just saw coming out yesterday that our distributors in France are doing. So we're kind of becoming the ambassadors for the Cotswolds, and this was Japan between lockdowns. A pop-up takeover of an art gallery in Tokyo. The Japanese do like the Cotswolds quite a bit. I just also wanted to call out to DIT because they've been really helpful to us. This was a big gin stand that they put up in Shanghai at the largest food show in China in 2019. And this, believe it or not, was just last week in Tokyo. And I was so happy to get these photos from our Japanese distributors to see that there was an actual physical trade show going on again. So anyway, that's all for us. I hope you guys can come down and see us. We'll be open again from April.
That's a very kind invitation, Dan. Thanks very much indeed. We'll probably be careful. We might take you up on that. Some very interesting questions, which I will save to the end, about if you can master the sort of the intricacies of the new EU paperwork. The government's saying you get yourself match fit for export to the rest of the world, possibly. That's certainly the government line on this. We'll ask the Department for International Trade a little bit about that. For now, thank you very much indeed. Let us move along now to Stuart Green, Director of Hydrogarden Limited, Coventry-based hydroponics business, which recently fared very well in the Sunday Times HSB International Fast Track. In the interest of time, I'm going to hand straight to you.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Stuart Green. As I was introduced, we are a hydroponics company based in Binley in Coventry. We've been going for 25 years. And basically, hydroponics is growing plants without soil. We do work with plants with soil now as well, but essentially we are a business that grows plants. Our technology grows plants quicker, better, more nutritiously. And we are trying to develop technology which can change the way we grow plants in the future for more plant-based diets. So we service 42 countries currently. Our headquarters are in Coventry. We've been here since the start. We are a strong West Midlands company, trying to always work with local producers or manufacture ourselves. We have offices or hubs in Germany, in South Africa, Spain, France, China, and a farm in Australia. We started looking at export about 10 years ago, well, probably actually more than that, 15 years ago. And we had a very close tie-up with an American company who together we bought a Spanish competitor. So that was our first foray, if you like, into going hard at Europe. That ended in disaster, but we learned a lot from it and moved on. Primarily due to the fact that Americans think very different to Europeans, and we didn't really see eye to eye. The management team wasn't correct, but we learned a lot from it. We then aimed to go into America, and 4 years ago we went into America. That lasted 2 years when we realized actually that that wasn't the right route to take, and we wanted to focus hard on our main territories we already serviced, which was Europe and into Eastern Europe, Russia, Asia, and Africa. In our market, the strongest competition comes from America, and they tend to be American-centric. So we were going up against a huge market, yes, but also huge competition. So pulling out of America was a good choice for us, allowed us to focus on our existing strong markets, and to aid against Brexit at the beginning of 2020, we purchased a German competitor who was based in Berlin. This gave us access to Eastern Europe, and we were already in Scandinavia, but gave us more access into Scandinavia. And then at the start of 2020 as well, we opened up a warehouse facility and distribution facility in South Africa. That was from the ground up, with just 2 people at the start. It's now grown into a team of 5, and is growing really successfully, but organically. The aim of that is to go into Africa from South Africa. The German company, as I say, we took over beginning of last year. COVID has had an effect, but on the whole, generally a positive effect. And due to the structures we've imposed as well, and bringing in our products which people want. Currently, January, our first year since the takeover, we've doubled the turnover in 1 year. And so we're looking at really strong growth into Europe. And it's certainly helping with Brexit at the moment, with the issues that we're all facing with ports, etc., because we were distributing primarily from our Coventry site into Europe, which has had some issues recently, as we've all faced. So we are based in Coventry, as I say. Our head office is in Binley, and we have 2 hubs here. We're currently working from 138,000 square foot, and we have just started building. We're just sorting the groundworks at the moment for a further 30,000 square foot. We have over 5,000 products. Key to us is customer service. So we try and get as many deliveries on time and keep stock in as much as possible to fulfill orders. And a huge amount of effort also goes into returns. We've seen a huge growth and capturing of the market since we changed our policies on this about 8 or 9 years ago, and invested heavily in our returns policy and keeping things on the shelves. It's been difficult recently because of Brexit and the ports, but as a whole, we try and keep as much stock as possible, if not all stock, on the shelves. So what are the drivers for growth? Well, it's interesting listening to the previous speakers, because we are very much aligned. It's all about a dynamic team and investing in R&D. So at our Coventry site, we have a number of R&D chambers. We work closely with universities and Innovate UK, and up to 50% of group profits every year is invested in R&D. So far, we have 98 patents, and this is increasing. That's key to export when people want quality products that are innovative, and we are seen as a leader and at the forefront of the industry for this. It's also key to foster the ideas within the team and let the team bring the ideas forward. Again, as we were discussing with previous speakers, it's really, really important to get that ethos with the team, and it just makes the working environment more enjoyable. We do a lot of events and try and create an ecosystem, if you like, within the niche market where we develop our products, to try and bring our customers along with our vision and our ecosystem, so that they, once they understand what we're trying to do, we find that they go along with it. And when we're introducing new products, whether it be export or a home market, it's a lot easier to introduce those new products from a marketing and sales perspective. And we also advertise our social responsibility side as well. So we have a tie-up with schools, one particularly in South Africa, we do a lot of work with, but generally we help with schools and other local community projects. So what are we doing with Brexit to raise our export? Well, firstly, we want to manufacture more in the Midlands. So we are actively trying to bring back manufacturing from abroad where we can. And we have been innovating over the last 5 years to change the way we produce products and have a whole new suite of products, bringing all our technologies together to try and bring change to agriculture and make it micro agriculture instead of mass agriculture. It's a joined up approach where you start with people growing in the home, people growing in offices, people growing in social projects, and people growing in restaurants, supermarkets, all within your local community, which saves on waste, it saves on food miles, and essentially is a better social model. To do this, we are investing heavily within this, creating new growth chambers, making these in the Midlands, right through from larger growth chambers, which will be in supermarkets, through to the Starbucks at home model, where you have home systems where you can grow at home, with development in crops, where we have raised nutrition crops to try and produce essentially a alternative to tablet supplements. These will go through supermarkets right through to your home, with home systems where you can juice it or have fresh bag salads, gyms, supermarkets, retail, creating a user experience, food theatre, raised nutrition, health benefits, societal benefits. Larger supermarkets can be served from central hubs because they will be getting through too much produce to grow on shelf. So the chambers will be like a general point of sale. So that's where we are really. We are trying to change agriculture, and we're changing it from the Midlands, and with the help of growth hubs and the DIT and Innovate UK, the forefront of the industry.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate that very much, and for rattling through that quickly. Really interesting company. I'm very interested in the fact you're trying to bring back manufacturing to the UK. I might ask you later on about how much of those markets in Europe and Eastern Europe you think you could do from here, or will that German business still be a very important part of the mix? But we must move on. So I'm going to ask Craig Humphrey, Managing Director of the CW LEP Growth Hub to give us a few words. No, this is he is our host, and I am his guest along with others, so I hope he won't mind me asking him to be as brief as he can be whilst explaining all the benefits that the organisation has to bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, and good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here representing the growth hubs of the West Midlands. And in fact, I am well aware that I am only the warm-up act for Jenny Campbell that follows me. Growth hubs were established, Simon, to simplify the business support landscape, a landscape that had become confusing. It was fragmented, and the complexity of it was leading to it becoming really difficult for businesses to navigate the support that they needed. So there are 38 growth hubs established across England that are clustered around regions, with the West Midlands covered by 6 growth hubs, those being Coventry, Birmingham, the Black Country, Stoke-on-Staffs, the Marches and Worcestershire. So we were established within a national framework, but always reflective of the local economies of each sub-region and the sector strengths that lie within them. Clusters were really developed as a mechanism for government to push messages out nationally to the business community without having the need to have 38 different conversations around the content. Coventry and Warwickshire act as the cluster lead for the West Midlands, and we came together as growth hubs in September 2019 to deliver the Get Ready for Brexit campaign, which seems an awful long time ago now. That campaign saw us engage with some 20,000 businesses, from which we had over 6,000 completed surveys that identified a range of concerns affecting businesses and their ability to trade. And then again, more recently, we came together for the EU Readiness Business Support campaign, which harnesses all of the support available from a wide range of partners, including DIT, the Combined Authority and the West Midlands Chambers of Commerce. But we knew from our previous intelligence in that first campaign that we would actually need specific detail to be produced around the issues that were concerning people and the business's ability to trade. So detail around things like the rule of origin, VAT, GDPR were questions that were being asked. So it was vital that we were able to connect businesses to that expert advice and help them identify the changes that they need to make within their own businesses following the end of the transition period. And then working with colleagues to identify new markets and how to access the support and resources available to them. As you might expect, there's been a huge demand for access to those experts, which is why during the rest of this month, there continues to be a range of Brexit clinics and one-to-one sessions with those specialist advisors. It will be an opportunity for businesses to discuss and review the impact of the first 3 months, and details can be shared at the end. I think for me this morning, it's been fascinating to hear the experiences of not only local companies, but insights from industry heavyweights. Today is about bringing opportunities to life. We know that the new trading arrangements with Europe will have an impact. But when we hear of a green revolution and a low carbon economy, what does that actually mean for my business? Part of our role at the Growth Hub is to ensure that the business community is sighted on the emerging opportunities. And how do you then take advantage of them so that when you hear of things like HS2, the Commonwealth Games, the City of Culture and the Gigafactory alluded to by Andy, what do the supply chains of those opportunities look like for our businesses? Platforms like Find It that we're on this morning help to promote those opportunities. And since launch in Coventry and Warwickshire alone, there has been a total of £19.5 billion worth of opportunities in only 11 months since launch. So registration is free. And if you do nothing else this morning than register, then at least you will be cited on those future opportunities. We also know that engaging with support is beneficial, and we are delivering a series of peer-to-peer networks across the Midlands to link business leaders together to learn from each other, to collaborate on industry problems and exchange ideas and knowledge. We've got a rich history of manufacturing across the West Midlands. We are the engine room of the British economy and house some of the world's best innovation assets, such as WMG and MTC. We need to make access to those assets even easier in the future, and we will be working alongside them and the combined authority to deliver Made Smarter across the West Midlands, which focuses on the industrial digitalisation. The programme will be available from April this year. So whether you're a startup or whether you're a growing SME, then we are the Growth Hubs, the front door to the support ecosystem. Our team is a commercially focused team of account managers, and they understand your challenges. They speak in a language that you understand. So I'll leave you with this thought. If support from the Growth Hub is free, we are backed by BAYS, and if you can benefit from more opportunities and then be more productive, can you afford not to be in touch? Thank you, Simon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Craig. That was really helpful, and you got a lot of information in very economical times. I thank you for that. Let us now go to our to Jenny Campbell, who many of you will know from Dragon's Den. She spent 2 series on that. But there's so many accolades she won. She was Businesswoman of the Year in 2014. She was an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Lots and lots of accolades. She also sold what was a struggling business for a lot of money, which is one of the reasons she got onto Dragon's Den. She left the world of banking in 2006. Boy, she timed that one well. And she's here to share a few thoughts of what she's learned in that very impressive career. So good morning or good afternoon to you, Jenny. Hi there. It's just one of the key messages today is about breaking into new markets. And obviously you left the banking, the RBS and NatWest that you were sort of integrating and went off into a new division. What did you learn about how you break into a new business or get an existing business into new markets?
Yeah, so I can resonate with a lot of the things that actually Craig just said about the support from Growth Hubs. I actually bought the business out of RBS in 2010, having worked in it from 2006. And immediately I bought it out. We had to have a growth strategy because it was a very congested marketplace in my business in the UK. And so we'd done all the research ready to launch into Europe. We went into Belgium in 2011 and then Ireland in 2012. I actually think that back then, from what I recall, there were not the levels of support that there are today that I see through these growth hubs and through these LEPs. And I know from my investment in Distillery Gin on the Den what support they're having from their growth hub in Manchester, which is phenomenal for their international growth plan. So I think we did a lot more in-house around the research for what was possible in new markets and how to do that. And we also recruited advisors, accountants and lawyers that had presence on the ground in the countries that we needed to go into. But I think we had to do a lot more self-taught, I would say, without as much support as there is clearly around us today, which is fantastic. I can't actually hear you at the moment, Simon.
I beg your pardon. I did the cardinal and the fatal error. Should be shot these days for doing that. But did you? I mean, you say that what you say is you feel that there's a lot more support on offer now than there was then. So, and if you were doing again what you did then, how would you do things differently? Do you think?
Well, I would be engaging as the businesses are here now with my local growth hub, as my investment Distillery Gin is in Manchester with its growth hub, and it brings together the accountants, the lawyers, in my case, Manchester Airport with Distillery Gin, which is important as well. I didn't feel that we had that connected network of support to help us take our business abroad at that time, but we had to almost join the dots ourselves then, which we did, but it would have helped. We had the Department of Trade, of course, but then that seemed to very much focus on, are you going to create jobs abroad? Which we weren't. You know, we were exporting our products and services, but we weren't creating jobs abroad.
Okay. When of the things that the building blocks you needed, was it the product? Was it the personnel? Was it the brand? Was it the market? Which were the most important bits, or is it all of those? Yeah,
it is all of those. I mean, I took over a business in 2006 that was fundamentally broken in that it had grown so fast under the original entrepreneurship that it didn't have the systems, the processes, or the people to be able to grow either in the UK or internationally. So we had to rewind, and I put a program in place a bit like Kevin's 3 C's. I have my 3 R's, and it was about repair, rebuild, reinvent. But we had to take a step back to take 2 forward. So that was investing in our systems, having more corporate processes in place that were scalable. But crucially, as a lot of the speakers have spoken about, it was about having quality people in the business who could run those systems and run those processes efficiently, deal with things when they fell over, have a risk and management control process, because things do fall over when you're running operations, but then it's how you mend them and how you give those customers a positive experience. So it's always about the quality of people in your business.
I hear that so many times when I'm doing, talking to entrepreneurs like yourself, and even to sort of leaders of very big businesses. I mean, is there any secret to finding the right talent, or attracting them, keeping them, motivating them, training them? How do you go about that? Because, there is always a shortage of good people.
Yes, make your place a great place to work. We're at work a long time, many hours. So I always wanted to make it a great place that people enjoyed coming to work. They wanted to turn up to work. We also supported them through family issues, etc. So it was a work hard, a play hard, give back type environment. And I used to spot employees everywhere. Even if I went to a restaurant and I had great service with a great attitude, I would say to that typically young person, you need to come and work for me. And that's how I used to find them on all my travels and look for those people who wanted to work for me.
That's a great story. So you would just go out literally, and if you like the cut of the waiter or waitress's jib, you would say, "Come and work for me."
Absolutely, they had to have the right attitude.
Well, that's so important, isn't it, in service businesses? And the thing is, when we talk, and I'm the worst offender possibly, when we talk about things like exports and the challenges of Brexit, we get very obsessed with goods rather than services. And I'll tell you why that is. It's just much more interesting to film somebody making a car than it is to film someone being an accountant. And so if it doesn't work on TV, but just in service exports to the EU, what do you think are the particular challenges? Because clearly we did have a passport for financial services into the EU, though we haven't got that yet. There's an agreement coming. What are the particular challenges you think at the moment?
Well, again, like the other speakers, I think challenges are always opportunities. And I also think we're in teething challenges at this moment in time, and we'll work through them. So we just have to grasp the nettle, and we have to understand what are those challenges to the service industry. Yes, I've imported 1 or 2 goods from Europe recently, and it was a bit of a painful process with documentation and extra tax and so on. So that's very tangible. And the service industries do have tangible elements to them. There's people on the end of those services, there's processes on the end of them. So I always say you have to kind of unpick the whole piece and rebuild it to make it fit for purpose. So, we do have professional and business services out in Europe. We're going to have to adapt those much more for those local markets. It's always about understanding local rules and regulations and cultures and licensing and all the little bits that we used to have wrapped up under an EU badge. Now we have to know our local markets much more intimately and adapt to those.
That's interesting, because it's an argument I heard Michael Gove make at one point, which a lot of people raised eyebrows, which is that, by having to sort of really get used to the nuts and bolts of exports to the EU in ways we haven't done before, we actually demystify some of this and makes us a match fit for exporting to the rest of the world. Is there any value in that argument? Do you think that actually it forces us to sort of really get to grips with how these things work, and therefore, if we can handle it for the EU, businesses that only ever exported to the EU might think, I'll have a crack elsewhere in the world?
Absolutely. I mean, the messages are out today from the reports about the Foreign Services Review. We have the opportunity to really become a global Britain. Why stop at Europe? We can definitely reach out into Asia and Australia, etc. Why we do not need to be hunkered down with Europe now. We are an independent island, and we can take our global reach up across the globe.
Yeah. But we could have done that anyway, couldn't we? The point is that the largest single country that the UK exports to is actually the US. We do about $100 billion worth of trade with them. For example, Germany's biggest market is China. Both of those markets are outside the EU. I just wonder whether we could have been doing this anyway, could we not?
I think we probably feel more empowered now. Who am I to say why businesses felt bogged down by European legislation, but they did. Equally, I would often refuse to be bogged down with it and break a few windows, as they say. So I think we've probably got our British competitive spirit back now, and we absolutely don't need to feel refrained if we did before. And we're writing new deals as we speak, new trade deals, and we need to grasp those opportunities straight away.
Okay. I mean, I have to point out that a lot of the trade deals we're signing are just rollover deals to replace the stuff we already had. But that's me just getting my BBC Balance bit out there. But I suppose the question, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I just wondered, what is if the SMEs are on this call at the moment, just a couple of bits of sort of, golden advice for them to grow the business. And then once you've started the business and you can see it is growing, a lot of people will be that very difficult bit, the scale up bit, a bit of the journey. Any advice on that?
Well, make sure your business is sound and you're conquering your home markets first. We always say start at home. And then when you've got that sound foundation, I would say aim big, and you can scale it, in steps to the markets that you can go to and make the biggest impact first. Recruit feet on the ground. You've got to have local people on the ground involved in your businesses. We found when we went to Belgium, it isn't one country, it's three countries rolled up under one title. So we had to have two languages, potentially three, and work with a local person in each territory. So aim big, take careful but bold steps.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Jenny, we're going to move on to the next item in the agenda today. I know you're sticking around for a little while. Thank you very much indeed for your time. What we're going to do now is move on to James Ahern, James has got 11 years of experience working in international trade for the DIT and the Coventry and Warwickshire Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to give us a little bit of a primer on some of the support that is available for those people making that leap and wanting to do a bit more exporting. I have to say, a lot of people have been critical of the government in the handling of Brexit and where we ended up. And that's just depends. Lots of reasonable minds can differ on that. What I have heard from many people is that when they've turned to the Department of International Trade on things like this, they have been incredibly helpful. So he's going to explain how he could do that for you. James, over to you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. As Simon said, I've been asked to give you a very quick introduction today to DIT, and in particular to some of our work and the support that we're able to offer for those of you who are looking to export and who are perhaps navigating some of those new issues that we're facing around Brexit and the end of the transition period earlier this year. To kick off, for those of you who perhaps aren't familiar with DIT and haven't dealt with us before, we are a government organisation, and one of our principal remits, our main roles, is to work with and support UK-based companies that are looking to export their products or their services to overseas markets. So it doesn't matter whether you're entirely new to the game or you're an experienced global trader. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, what size your company is. We can work with you to help you develop your business internationally. Now, given that remit, as you might imagine, we've obviously spent quite a lot of time, not just over the last few months, but over the last few years, frankly, working with companies in the UK, firstly, to help them prepare for EU exit and to prepare for the end of the transition period. And then more recently, from January this year, obviously, to actually navigate those new rules and those new procedures that businesses are facing. And particularly in the last few months, we've worked very closely with the growth hubs across the West Midlands as part of their EU exit work, so that whenever a company comes through and they've got a quick question, a query or a concern around EU exit and the new rules, those companies are coming through to us and we're able to pick that up, usually on a one-to-one basis, and work with that company to help them get an answer to their question and move forward. In terms of the support that we're able to offer, we've only got a 5-minute slot today, and I'm not going to go into great detail on all different areas and the different programs that we run. The main message I would like to get across to you all is that there really is a fantastic network out there, based locally across the West Midlands, based nationally across the UK, and internationally as well, through the global network that DIT has. And that network is there as a support resource for you to tap into, to help get answers to your questions, and more importantly, to look into the future to help you with your export growth. So if we look locally here in the West Midlands, we've got a team of somewhere in the region of 25 international trade advisors based across the patch. Those advisors can work with you on a one-to-one basis as a business to help you navigate issues around EU transition, and also generally to help you with your export strategy and your overall export growth. We also have a whole cohort of specialist advisors based locally as well, many of whom we took on in recent months as a response to some of the issues that we've been seeing around EU exit. So, we've got locally based specialists on topics like customs and logistics, e-commerce, where we've seen huge growth due to COVID, business culture, service sector exporting, routes to market, so things like agency and distributor agreements. And these are really knowledgeable, experienced people able to offer specialist advice, and it's all free of charge, and they're all locally based here in the West Midlands. The other area I'd like to highlight as well is the global network. So even with COVID and restrictions on travel, our work with the global network hasn't stopped. We've got teams based at embassies, consulates, chambers of commerce and so on around the world. And we're regularly running events and activities with that network to both raise awareness of export opportunities for UK companies, but also to try and provide a mechanism for them to access those opportunities. So, we run country-specific events, we run events at trade shows, we run trade missions, we run Meet the Buyer and Meet the Expert events. And a lot of that activity at the moment, we are moving to a virtual format while we wait to see what happens with the COVID-19 situation. So my main message there is that, whatever stage in export you're at, whether you're looking to deal with a specific issue around EU transition or you're just generally looking at export growth, there really is a fantastic network out there that's ready and willing to support your business. One other area I'd just like to quickly highlight today is a new service we offer called the Export Academy. So this is something we launched just in the last few months, and it's really targeted at those companies that are either new to export or inexperienced. And I think it's a recognition of the fact that those companies often need more intensive support when they're starting out in export. And that's true now more than ever with the changes that we're seeing as a result of Brexit and at the end of the transition period. What it boils down to in terms of support that companies can access is this. A company can access one-to-one support from a locally based advisor to help them with their strategy, build an export action plan, and then broker in support from the Export Academy, the wider DIT network, the growth hubs, chambers of commerce and other players in the region. So we've put together a suite of fully funded training workshops for companies on issues such as market research and selection, international marketing and export procedures. We've got a suite of around 10 lighter touch webinars on topics such as Incoterms. That's a huge issue at the moment with EU transition. And we're actively working with DIT, growth hubs and other partners to broker in support where we don't have something within the Export Academy. One very quick example on that, which is highly relevant to today, is this one. So this is a fully funded, free of charge training workshop we can offer to companies on export procedures in 2021. So this explains everything you would need to know as a company on how to move goods internationally based on the new rules for trade now that we've left the single market and the customs union. So my final slide here, really, I just wanted to leave you with this message, I suppose. So the image on the left there says a world of opportunity awaits. And that's still true today, as much as it was a few years ago. There is quite literally a world of opportunity for UK companies to get out there and sell their products and services overseas. The big difference between now and a few years ago as a result of EU exit is that there are new rules, there are new procedures that need to be followed, and things have changed substantially in a very short period of time. What that means for you as a company is that preparation now is more important than it's ever been if you're looking to export, whether that's to the EU or whether that's further afield to the US, Canada, Asia, South America, and so on. The good news is that there is that network there. There is a lot of support and advice out there from the DIT, from the growth hubs, and from other organisations across the UK. And I think there's probably more support out there I've seen in the last sort of year or two than in the last 10 years for a company that's looking to get into export. So please do get in touch with us. We'll be happy to explain more and to get you tapped into that network and start working with you. So I'll just leave this here as my final slide. If you'd like to get in touch with me about anything I've spoken about, if you're interested in the Export Academy, please just drop me an email. Or if you would like to be put in touch with an international trade advisor, just email the address on screen and we'll sort that out for you. That's it from me. So thank you for your time, and back over to you, Simon.
James, thank you. You'll be glad to know that we've had some comments on our question hub saying they've actually got some pretty positive feedback on the advice from DIT and also the speed at responding to inquiries, which are often urgent for business. So some good feedback for you. Some great comments about Kevin Gaskell's talk, and obviously we had a little problem with the slide there. Please let Claire Smith, who's today's organizer of the event, if you want to see some of those slides. I don't think we lost anything because I thought it was a very powerful presentation, but if you would like a copy of those slides, do get in touch. Now, we've had a couple of comments and I don't know where to start on these. I think there's one here from Anthony Burton from Ridge Park Limited. And his question is about contract management, saying that you can lose a lot unless you manage the contracts that you're dealing with very carefully. Would the panel agree that better contract management should be a key driver, and that potentially the use of independent contract management in order to reduce value leakage is the term he goes out? But perhaps I can ask you, Jenny, you moved into Belgium, and perhaps also I can ask Stuart in your, as you moved into Europe. Jenny first, getting the detail right, getting the wording of contracts right, how important is that? Or is that a kind of learn on the job and sort of, make mistakes along the way? And can you avoid them?
Absolutely crucial. I'm just hand-holding one of my businesses right now who thought it was quite easy to write a contract, and I was saying, whoa, I've been in business where the flawed contract that we had entered nearly sunk the ship, literally. So, I've got the scars, worn the T-shirt. So you must take your time over contracts. You must involve a contract lawyer. Don't be railroaded into agreeing clauses without working through what those mean. Always have remedies in place if things are not delivered according to plan. So yes, the detail is 100% important. Yeah,
Stuart, would you like to add to that at all?
Yes, we're finding it out as we speak with Germany. So Germany is just a minefield for contracts, and we're spending a huge amount of money on lawyers to get it right. But you have to get it right. So
what is the mistake, people? Is the mistake that you think that everyone's so lovely and nice out there and they would never do something, so you don't really need this clause in there? Or is it, I don't believe businesses are out to sort of catch each other out. So what is the is there a mindset you need to get used to?
I think for us, it's a difference of the geographical difference. It's a different society. It's a different way of working. So in Germany, we're probably in one of the most legalized countries in the EU, and it's taken it to another level compared to what it is here. Yeah, that's something we're learning very, very quickly.
Okay. A quick question for Craig, if I may, Craig Humphrey. There are some changes. We've obviously had a lot of changes over the last few months and years. We've got a few changes on the funding for some of the stuff that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about what happens on March the 31st, what happens before and what happens after?
I think, Simon, one of the benefits of collaborating with, colleagues across the West Midlands is we're able to augment the funding that came from central government to make sure that we've got mechanisms in place to deal with any of the bumps in the road that continue beyond the end of March. So we're always looking to react, to the needs of business. So we will be retaining some of the resource that we've utilised thus far. And of course, there will be some new funds. We heard an announcement from Michael Gove only a couple of months ago around a new Brexit support fund that will be made available. So, what I would do is urge companies that are still feeling some of the impact of this transition to stay in touch with the growth hubs, because when more support becomes available, we will be able to plug you into that support when it's available to you.
Okay. Can I ask Kevin Gaskell, I mean, what is the different about this market? Like I said, I never thought I'd cover a bigger story than the financial crisis on my patch, and then COVID came along, and then Brexit, and we obviously got Brexit as well. Does this market remind you anything? What are the common denominators? When you were giving your presentation, there was a lot of talk about inspiring people, connect, create, commit, connect, create. And I thought, if you're running Porsche, you've got some quite deep pockets there. If you want to pull apart business and start again from scratch, that's fine. If you're one of the biggest engineering groups in the world, that's hard to apply to smaller businesses, isn't it?
Well, actually, at the time, Porsche was out of cash, and the changes we made were less than cost neutral, and we took out 50% of the operating cost of the business. And so we made massive changes even before we started to engage the team. I liked what Jenny said about repair. We cut the headcount by 50% 2 weeks after I took over. It was the most horrific decision I've ever had to take. And I'd been in that business for 5 years, so I knew the people. So it wasn't different in that regard. We did not have any cash. The banks would not advance us any further monies. The difference with COVID, to answer your question, is it happened so quickly. In February last year, I was in Australia working away very happily. And in March, the world finished. So it happened so quickly. And I think what it's done, it's very obvious for people to see which sectors have been hurt the most. Obviously, travel, hospitality, absolutely decimated. But equally, it's been very interesting to see which industries have reacted quickest and best. And obviously, online capability has been a key part of this. But other companies have reacted well, even though they weren't so capable online. I mean, the business I spoke about, my company, which has grown, well, we grew last year by 180% and will grow this year by 200%. And it's not an online business. But what we did was realize where the market was going and adapted our operation. So we rebuilt our business to respond and respond very quickly. And that's why I talk about days. We make decisions in days. We implement change in days. We connect people in days. And by engaging the whole team, you get everybody pushing in the same direction and everybody sharing their passion for actually dragging their company through this difficult period. Yeah. So, I've lived through Black Friday, Black Monday, Pink Tuesday, Shrove Wednesday, whatever it was. I've been through all of those. I'm an old man. And you just have to react quickly, fast. Okay.
All right, speed of the essence, a message you recapitulating from earlier. This is a comment here for Daniel Zorf. This is Michael Waldron. He says that he's actually visited your premises and we had a great time there. Congratulations on the excellent team. Please carry on the great work. Joy to visit your work. So there we have some great feedback. Question I have is, everyone knows what a Porsche is. No one's got a clue what Cotswold gin or whiskey is. I guess the question is, how do you break into those new markets? Because it's not easy if someone's going, if you're starting from scratch with a product that no one's ever heard of. How do you identify? How do you build an identity and give it a push?
Well, I've spent a lot of my life in sales, in financial services sales. From the point where I was in university, I was sort of cold calling on Wall Street, and the feeling was, if you want to raise, pick up the phone. I mean, there's nothing. It's not difficult to go out there and start to talk to people and figure out. I mean, obviously, in our business, you need a distributor in every country you go into. Which one, should you find? Well, look at who the best distributor who's working with your competitors is. Don't be afraid to get on a plane and go and pitch. And the same things that resonate about our story in the UK resonate about it in Japan. There's a search for quality, for authenticity, for things that are local. And so it's really about getting on and doing it. I mean, the support we've had from both from our local, LEPs and also from DIT has been great. But I would say don't count on that, and just go out there and put it on yourself, really.
So it's sheer brass neck and just sales kind of drive. to break into getting your product in Waitrose, in Sainsbury's, whatever, and all the multiples, because that seems to me to be such a key moment when you go from being artisan, someone who sells stuff at the local market, and then you're in nationally in supermarkets. That seems to be that transition seems to be a big one.
We invited our Waitrose buyer to come and be a whiskey distiller for a day, and that worked wonders.
Okay, nice approach. Can I ask James, actually, what is the most popular thing that people are coming to you with? The most popular, well, I say popular, the most common problem where people are finding things very difficult in a post-Brexit world?
I would say probably the issue that comes up time and time again now is Incoterms or international commercial terms, which is essentially setting out who's responsible for what in the international shipment process. Because the main difference now in terms of trade with the EU, I would say, is that we have a customs border where there wasn't a customs border before. So, and that means that there are new responsibilities for buyers and sellers. As a seller, you need to be responsible for an export declaration. But as a buyer, you need to be responsible for an import declaration on the other end. And I think understanding that change and understanding the new roles and responsibilities that everybody has in that process is probably the single biggest issue that we're facing. And I think there is a real need for suppliers and buyers to be talking to one another in advance and making sure that this is all joined up. And that everybody understands, what they are now responsible for in that process. Because I think in terms of the delays and the problems we are seeing, that's what's triggering them. It's the fact that people aren't aware of their new responsibilities.
I just, as a personal observation, I've been talking to a lot of people over the last few months, and some are saying, actually, we're going to have to diversify into other markets, and we're going to have to go further afield. Some people are saying, export to the EU I only export to the EU. It was only 10% of my turnover. And actually, with all the extra bother involved, I'm just not going to bother at all. And then become non-exporters totally. Do you have a message for those people who are just thinking, do you know what, with the FAF, it's not that much more on top of my overall turnover. I'm just not going to bother.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are new procedures and new rules that need to be followed. And in the initial phase, as companies are having to step up to those new rules and step up to dealing with these new challenges, it is going to create issues, but none of them are insurmountable. And there is information and there is support out there to help companies navigate these issues. And I think over time, as industry, as the shipping and logistics industry as well, get used to the new ways of doing things, this will get easier.
Very much indeed. And just, I suppose, I wanted to put that kind of question, if I could, to Stuart, which is that you said you wanted to return some of your manufacturing to the West Midlands. Could you do that? I mean, how much could you not do? I'm trying to think how to word this. How important is having, because a lot of people who say the EU business is so important, and a lot of them are being advised, sometimes by the DIT, saying you're going to need an EU subsidiary if you're going to do that. Is that how you found it?
Yes. The main thing we're looking at is to move manufacturing back to Europe / UK. UK is the ideal, Europe if not. A lot of our manufacture was in Asia, a lot still is, a lot less than it was. The issue there is because we're quite a fast growth company, issues on supply chain, Chinese New Year on cash flow, and now massive issues with ports and cost of freight means that certain things that weren't viable beforehand are now viable to move back to the UK. So we're constantly looking at what we can move back and manufacture here to have just-in-time manufacturing.
Okay, well, listen, I think that it's 12:45 very nearly. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. There's a warning here from Phil Harris from Harris Projects. Says, if you're trading in Germany, make sure you understand German insolvency code ONSO and possible application to your company if a supplier of your customer goes into administration. So there we go, a very specific warning there from Phil Harris. I think the general approach today, a lot of people saying this has been a good event and lots of positive noises. I mean, I am in a place where we tend to hear a lot about when there are problems and not hear so much when there are opportunities. So one of the reasons I like doing events like this is I get to hear a much more positive spin than is sometimes put on by some of the stuff that makes it into newspapers, for example, and indeed the mainstream media. But I'd like to thank all of our presenters. Thanks to Craig and the team at the CW LEP, and all of you for joining. And those slides, as I say, from Kevin are available if you contact the event organisers. But with that, I wish you all best of luck and a great rest of your day. See you now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've got questions regarding how the new rules affect your workforce here in the UK and those working in the EU. You should contact our HR specialist, Tracy Hudson.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hudson. I run the HR department and I've been advising SME businesses on HR issues for over 20 years. In terms of the EU transition, I can help you with identifying the EU nationals in your business where you might need to take some action. I can help you support your employees to gain settled status through the EU settlement scheme, and I can help guide you on the documentation that you need to keep on file to confirm evidence of eligibility to work in the UK for your employees. I look forward to meeting you.
To make an appointment with Tracy Hudson or any of our other specialists, please call or visit our website. It's as easy as check, change, go. So, we've left the EU. You're wondering how this affects your VAT, particularly if you import or export goods. You should speak with Kevin Hall, our VAT expert.
Hi, my name's Kevin Hall. I'm a VAT specialist and I've been doing this since the last millennium. I work for the all-service law firm Wright Hassel. I look forward to helping you with the VAT queries that you have post-transition. Are you seeing your goods being held up at customs, for example? You might be seeing your customers receiving their goods late or having to pay more to receive them, and that will give you reputational damages. And even if you're not seeing anything at the moment, getting it wrong now will lead to penalties from HMRC in future. I'd very much like to help you with all of your issues and doubts and questions, so please do get in contact with me.
To make an appointment with Kevin Hall or any of our other specialists, please call or visit the website. It's as easy as check, change, go. Okay, so you're not sure how to maximise your services function now that we've left the EU. You should speak with Alvaro Parra, our services specialist.
Hi, my name's Alvaro. I have 15 years experience in the service sector. I can help you with all sorts of service sector issues such as the ability to run businesses that are registered in the EU, the ability to have UK qualifications recognised in the EU, and compliance in food and drink. If you have any issues such as these, I look forward to hearing from you.
To make an appointment with Alvaro Parra, please call us or visit our website. It's as easy as check, change, go. So, we've left the EU and you're wondering how this affects your GDPR and the Business Data Protection Policy. You should speak with Helen Barge, our GDPR specialist.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm from Risk Evolves and we specialise in data privacy and information security. If you have any queries around what your data privacy policy should look like, understanding where your data is, managing through any contractual changes that may be required as a result of the EU exit, then please just give us a call.
To make an appointment with Helen Barge or any of our other specialists, please call or visit the website now. It's as easy as check, change, go.